Alrighty. Oh, okay. So if anyone has any questions, I'll ask you. But
Okay.
if I look to the right, it's also because I'm monitoring the live stream as well. So,
Okay.
all right, everyone. I'm super excited to introduce to you Amanda Russo. Thank you so much for me being having me as a guest on the Manders Mindset podcast. I've also included your Instagram, your Linktree, your YouTube channel, and so if anyone wants to connect with Amanda, she's amazing. So today, I'm sitting down with the incredible Amanda Russo, known as the Breathing Goddess. So if you're feeling stuck or stagnant in your life, or um, you're kind of in an interesting place, well, today's conversation is very much going to be about shifting your mindset. So I know Amanda is a breathwork detox facilitator and a transformative mindset coach. And you're also a divorce paralegal as well, right?
Yep.
So this is going to be really, you're in for a treat. For people who don't know who you are, I'm really excited to go through your background. And oh, cool, we have people watching already, so that's good. Welcome, everyone. And I know that you've done a lot of work and helping, like dedicated a good chunk of your life to help out others. And you've struggled with many challenges when it comes to health wise, and you tried all these different things from Reiki to yoga, meditation, training, plant medicine. So we'll dig a little bit deeper into your journey. And yeah, and you've interviewed so many incredible people on the podcast, so it'd be really, we'll dig a little bit deeper into some of the takeaways and some of the memorable stories just from that experience, because I know it takes courage to start a podcast and commitment. So I definitely want to dig a little bit deeper into some of the I feel like there's a lot of common themes I'm sure that you're noticing with a lot of your guests. And yeah, I'm just really
Yeah.
excited to integrate my community and yours together. This is going to be a treat for everyone.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
Yeah. So I know you've been traveling a bit as well. So maybe we'll start off on something light, like where have you traveled to recently and what compelled you to take that leap of faith?
Well, recently I've been a few places recently. Not most recent, but one of my favorites was Bali. I went to Bali in May and I loved it. I loved every single part about it. Um, and it actually happened randomly, spontaneously. I want to say I manifested it. Some people believe me, some people don't. But so, little backstory: I am a breathwork detox facilitator. One of the other breathwork detox facilitators was hosting a retreat in Bali. I found out about it, and at the time, I was unemployed. I had gotten laid off from the paralegal job I was at the time. It was only a couple months later. I still wasn't working, and realistically, how the hell did I think I was gonna like go to Bali getting unemployment? I don't know, but I even told the host, I was like, listen, I don't know how this is gonna happen, but there's gonna be a day you and I are gonna be in Bali together. Well, she even was like, I'll extend the deadline for like the deposit. I didn't have the money. So
Mm.
I still had it in my head. And I even said to her, it might not be May, but listen, there's going to be a day you and I are going to be in Bali. And I could see her and I overlooking this waterfall. Well, time passed, fast forward, I got a different paralegal job. And now one of my other friends, who's a breathwork detox facilitator as well, was registered. She was going on this retreat. And last minute, she wasn't able to go. There was different things with her son, and she wasn't able to leave the country. And she posted that she was gifting this on her Facebook story. And I was like, what does that even
Well,
mean? And now normally I wouldn't even reply to something like that, but her and I were close. So I literally was like, yo, what the fuck do you mean? And I literally said it like that, just like,
well,
what does this mean? And she's like, I can't go. I know it's super last minute, but I'm not looking for a refund. She's like, you just got to pay for the flight. And then she's like, you should go. I'm like, dude, what? Then she starts telling me, it would make me feel so much better about missing this if it was you that took it. And I'm like,
oh,
oh my God. So then even more so, I'm like, I gotta go to fucking Bali. I gotta figure this out. I gotta go
wow,
to Bali. So I did.
so cool.
I quit the paralegal job to be able to go, but I went and I have no regrets.
Huh. Wow, the universe really the universe works in very mysterious ways, right?
I know,
That's a sign from the universe if I've ever heard of
right?
one. Yeah.
Right. I believed it was too. I had let it go. Wasn't thinking about it. And then I was just like, wait a second, what? And then I
Hmm.
even said to her, I was like, look, I don't know if I can make this work. I know it's super last minute, whatever. Like, if you have other people like interested, that's fine. And she's like, I haven't even heard from anybody else. And I'm
Hmm.
like, oh, okay. And yeah, things just worked out. But it was really like down to the wire. Like I booked my
Hmm.
flight on a Friday and I left Wednesday morning. So
What?
like
That's wild.
not a lot of preparation per
Huh.
se. Yeah, but I
That's
even
cool.
found out about the opportunity with I think it was 20 days exactly from when I spoke to my friend first to when I had to be in Bali. So like
Hmm.
there was not a lot of time to like figure out hotels, figure out a flight, book a flight, and yeah.
Yeah. Eh, So most people like think logically where it's like, well, why would I have a job, like I wouldn't leave. How does one like trust their intuition and not, because I think most people would be like, that's crazy. Like, why would you do that? Right?
You know, there was just a few things because something in me was just like, you just got to do this. You know, I've got I've got an education. Not that education is everything, but it's something that still some jobs look for. Like I've got my bachelor's. I have experience at different law offices. So like even the logic behind that as I really started to think, it's not like I won't be able to get another job.
Hmm.
And when I really sat and thought to myself, it was also like, who gets an opportunity to go to Bali for almost free? I
Hmm.
paid for a plane ticket. People don't get
Yeah.
opportunities like that every day,
Yeah.
and I actually I was really hesitant about it. And I even did a podcast with a good friend of mine right before. And he had asked me a question and he was like, you at the end of your life, like you want to look back and say to yourself, like, and have tears in your eyes that it was so meaningful and you did stuff that like made such a big
Hmm.
difference. Like you're not going to think about, wow, I was a paralegal at this place for so long. And even as I started
Hmm.
thinking logistically, out of all the places I've been a paralegal, that was the place I liked the least. They weren't
Oh.
it wasn't bad. Like it wasn't a bad job, but it wasn't great. So it was one of those
Oh.
that it was like I'm not really gonna miss it per se.
Yeah,
And it
true.
was just like sitting thinking back when I'm even not my deathbed, but when I'm older, when I'm 60, when I'm 70, I'm not going to regret not staying at a job that I didn't love when I had an
Hmm.
opportunity to go to Bali for almost free, you know?
Yeah. That's awesome. Good for you. Like that takes courage and just trusting your own intuition.
Yeah.
Um, I'm curious, like it sounds like obviously you've tried, it seems like everything, right? Reiki, yogi, breath work, like it sounds like you went through the whole gamut. That clearly means that you've gone through some things. Would you be able to share op about some of these obstacles and why you've decided to do so many different mo healing modalities and all of this training?
Yeah. Um, let's see, obstacles. Well, I'll backtrack a little bit because a lot of it started with my fitness journey. So I was pretty overweight as a kid my whole life. Um, and actually in high school, I remember I went to the doctors and I was so close to 200 pounds. And I was just like, no, I'm never going to let myself get to that. I never did.
Hmm.
But what I developed from that was kind of an eating disorder, which I didn't realize at the time because now I wasn't making myself throw up and I wasn't not eating, but I wasn't eating meat. I was a vegetarian at the time. So I just switched my diet to I was eating green vegetables and some fruit. So not your classical eating disorder, but not, yeah. So I lost weight from that, and then I was doing a lot of cardio because I joined Planet Fitness, You had a cheap membership when you were in high school. So I lost weight from that, but and it was good. I enjoyed like the confidence boost of that. Then I went away to college and started gaining some of the weight back. I didn't gain it all back, but got involved with different crowds. And it was also more difficult for me to maintain the fruit and vegetable eating because I literally remember the first day at the dining hall and I was like, I don't have the option of green beans that I've been eating like 3 times a day for the
Mm.
past couple months. Okay. So kind of had to adjust there. Got involved in a relationship that was pretty toxic and it really changed me a lot. Um,
Mm.
I was in that relationship for about 5 years. We broke up for about 3 months at one point during it, about 2 years in. Um, and it was post that I slowly got into my fitness journey. Um, I remember we were living on a third floor apartment, and it was something so simple, but I was walking up the stairs, and I had nothing in my hand. I didn't have a single thing in my hand, not a wallet, not my phone, nothing. And I was like out of breath walking up the stairs, and I was just like,
Mm.
I'm done with this. I don't want to feel like this. Like
Mm.
it just fuck this, one of those things. And I discovered and found Rachel Hollis. She's an author. Know
Yeah, I
of her?
remember listening to her on the Lewis Howes podcast.
Yeah, I love her. I love her. And she talks about something called a 5 to 5. And now, like, it's 5 things you do the last 90 days of the year. And one of them is 30 minutes of movement. Any type of movement, 30 minutes every single day. And she has this quote, and I even still have it hung up in my bedroom. And she says, move your body, change your mind. And now I started just going on walks for 30 minutes a day because I didn't have a gym membership. I didn't even know where to start. I was like, you know what? I'm
Mm.
just going to start moving more. And I didn't notice like a weight loss, but I noticed just feeling even ease walking up the stairs. And I was like, okay, I'm on to something. I'm on to something here.
Mm.
Um, then just, I really believe in like synchronicities of timing of things. And I did that for a couple of weeks. And then I was starting to feel like I want to do more than just walking. And now it's mid-October. I live in New England. Soon we're going to be getting into winter. Like, could I walk in the snow? Yes, but there might be times I can't. So I'm
Right.
like, well, I months prior, I had actually won a gym membership to an Anytime Fitness, and I never used it. I won a 6 month membership, and I did not go one time. I
Oh
didn't go
wow.
once, but I was on record as being a past member. Apparently, I didn't even know that, but apparently I was. Because I got an
Mm.
email from them and they were like, oh, if you want to rejoin, you can get 2 free weeks. And I was like, this is my sign.
Mm.
Okay. And so I said to myself, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to join. Worst case scenario, if I don't go in 2 weeks, I won't get the membership. No harm, no foul. If I
Mm.
do, great. We'll see. Well, I went because you had to go to get like the key fob. So I went to get the key fob and I saw like this group class, like this fitness class. And they were giving me a tour. And I said to the guy giving me a tour, I was like, what is that? I want to do that. I don't know what that is, but I want to do that. They looked like they were having fun. They were moving around and it just looked enjoyable to me. I also at the time was living with my boyfriend and we were on the way out of this relationship. This was October. We broke up end of November. So even more so at the time, I didn't want to be in the apartment straight up. So like if I could do something fun, this looks like a fun activity, great. The guy's like, oh, that's our team training. Like they do HIIT workouts. It's like
Mm.
an hour long. I was like, oh, okay, that's a separate thing. I don't care. I want that. I started doing that and I loved it. I loved it. I was going, sometimes I would go to multiple classes a day because it wasn't like exercise to me. It was like I was hanging out with my friends,
Mm.
so it was just, and that's how it really developed for
Mm.
me. Um,
That's awesome. I'm similar to you. I love group classes. At one point, you're right. I was doing multiple group classes a day. I was doing like the Peloton like in the studio because like luckily I was like in New York City, and then at sometimes at night I'll do like Pilates, and then I'll do like a bar class, and then I'll do like a hit class the next day and then CrossFit that like I was all over, but it was great. Like to your point, it was the most fun thing ever just to
Yeah.
do the group because it doesn't feel like because when you're surrounded by people, you're just hanging out and like yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
And I worked second shift at the time, so I was working like 3 to 11. So they had like a 9 a.m. and a 12 p.m. So like, okay,
yeah.
I'm eating breakfast, I'm going to the 9, I'm coming home, I'm eating lunch, I'm going back for the 12. And I did that a few days a week.
That's awesome. I, I definitely can relate. Like I remember like I was very lucky when I worked at LinkedIn. They had kickboxing at like 3 or 4 or 5 o'clock, depending on which days. And then they would have like meditation in the morning, and then they would have like breath work, like some like so it was in like the course of the week, I would go to like 12 classes, and then we got points every time we went to class, so that I could redeem it for like wellness products and stuff like that. So I had like all this LinkedIn swag. But yeah, that's funny. So we share that in common as well.
That's so cool. I love that. I
Yeah.
love that.
So
But
I
yeah,
mean, that's inspiring, right? Because I mean, we all have been through ups and downs and the hump or the it feels like sometimes the abyss of the darkness where we're just like it's hard to get out of it. But it sounds like you set yourself a goal and you're like, 30 minutes of walking, it's free, like there's no excuses. Like I can't be like, oh, I can't afford a gym membership, right? And you were able
exactly.
to listen or follow the universe and the signs and instead of ignore it and then hit delete, which a lot of us do unconsciously or not, but you're able to be like, huh, 2 free weeks, like similar to the Bali trip. It's like you were able to see the signs and be like, all right, let's do it.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm also, I will say this, I'm a big believer in the starting small aspect. Not everybody agrees with me on that. Even when I started the fitness journey, yes, with the walking, but even with the gym, I had a trainer who was doing these group classes, talking to me about nutrition, talking to me about food. And I even said to him, I was like, listen, I've I went to a gym for like 2 months in my life in high school and only did cardio. I'm not changing my nutrition yet. He's like, you're not going to lose weight, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, listen, buddy, I'll talk to you in 3 months. Okay. I'll talk to you in 3 months. I lost 32 pounds in 3 months. I didn't do shit with nutrition. I increased
Huh.
protein, like not weighing it, not tracking it. I just literally ate more fucking chicken. That's it.
Huh.
Straight up. Hope I can swear on here. And
Yeah.
I added more water, but like I didn't change food because
Mm.
I was like, listen, I can't just wake up one day
Mm.
and be somebody who doesn't go to the gym, eats whatever the fuck she wants, drinks and
Yeah.
does all this stuff, and then wake up
Yeah.
one day and be like, I track food, I go to the gym. Like,
Mm.
what?
Yeah.
It's not gonna stick. So
Huh.
like if you start with one thing, do it. Everybody's different for how long you got to do it.
Mm.
Some people say 21 days, some people say 90 days. Everybody's different, but do
Mm.
it. Show yourself you can do it, stick with it, add on to it.
Mm. That's brilliant. To your point, I mean, I'll be honest. I've been guilty of like, yeah, let's do it. Like tomorrow, I'm gonna be like, and then complete like 180 from what I'm used to, and then it's never sustainable, right? It's like you're cool, you're good for like a week, and then I'm like, why am I so sore? Like, it's like, well, yeah, because like, but I would say I'm like that's not healthy. I think your point, what you did in that instance is way more sustainable and realistic, right? It's like you're and yourself, right? And I think 85% of people like that's the better way to do it. Whereas like every time I try it, I'm like, all right, like tomorrow I want to be like the healthiest person in the world. It's like if I'm a mess and I'm like not organized and my house is messy, it's gonna be unrealistic for me to like all of a sudden tomorrow with the snap of a finger is like, oh, I'm gonna be the most organized person in the world. But if I start off, it's like, all right, one day I'll clean like my office, spend the whole day, and then tomorrow I'll clean my kitchen, and then I'll start organizing my clothes, right? If I do it more that way, then it's like, okay, like I'm building the muscle instead of like tomorrow. It's like tomorrow I'm gonna clean the whole house and spend 24 hours. It's like I'm gonna burn out most likely if I try that.
Yeah. And it also, you could kind of set yourself up for disappointment, if you
Yeah.
don't meet that expectation for yourself. And
Mm.
something I heard before is the fastest way to kill self-confidence is not keeping promises to yourself. So I'm not going to make a promise to myself that I can't keep, or I think there might be a chance I can't follow through with it.
Mm. Yeah, this is why I love podcasting, because this is advice that I need right now in this moment. Because
I love that.
it's like I'm very extreme where I will be like, actually yesterday was like an extreme example where like I think I cleaned for 5 hours straight and it felt great, right? But like I think a healthier way is just like, hey, maybe once a week I set aside like, okay, maybe every Sunday it's like 2 hours of cleaning. And then once I get used to that, then it's like maybe I do like 2 days a week. So then I don't have to wait a whole week until I do my like deep cleaning, right? It's like maybe every day it's like, hey, like I do one skill, which is like, all right, like how about today I'm gonna intentionally be organized, right? And that maybe that's like I'm organizing my laptop or but what I typically do is I'll go like, all right, today I'm gonna like have these 30 items to check off my list, and then I only get 10, and then I'm like, oh man, like you only got 33% done your checklist. It's like, well, realistically, was I gonna check off 30? Probably not, but that's what I always do to myself, and then I'm like, oh no, I failed.
No, I get it. Honestly, I used to be the extreme type of person, like wanting to do it all. And I kind of learned that through fitness because I tried losing weight other times and it never stuck because I was doing everything or I was thinking I was doing it all, you know, eating
Yeah.
better, moving, and like it was overwhelming and it was so much. And it's great for a little bit, but at the beginning, your mind isn't used to it. Like you got to train yourself to be this new identity and show
Hmm.
yourself, almost not train, but like show yourself that you
Hmm.
are this person. You know what I'm saying? If that
Hmm.
makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, it's I love what you said earlier about it it's the word like what we I guess our confidence or self-esteem is how often we do what we say we're going to do.
Hmm.
And for
Keeping
you, it's
promises.
like,
Yeah.
hey, yeah, for you, and then you were able to lose 32 pounds, which is, I mean, that's quite impressive, right? So but it's because you were able to like execute on like, all right, I'm gonna walk like 30 minutes a day, and then so it's whereas like if we have way too many like goals and aspirations, then it's like, oh man, I didn't do it, and then like that really does affect our confidence. So I appreciate
Yeah.
it's more sustainable, the method that you're talking about, and you know yourself best, right? Like maybe there are some people that are crazy and like all of a sudden tomorrow it's like, all right, I'm gonna run a marathon, but that for like us mortal human beings, like that's just not realistic, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, so your podcast, I'm so curious because meeting other podcasters are amazing because like I think, and we had a discussion about this on your podcast, but it's like one of those like secret hacks where it's like, oh, you get to meet like networking wise, you get to meet so many interesting people, and then you get to take something away from everyone's like stories. What was the catalyst that made you want to start the podcast? Is the first question.
So I feel like I have an interesting journey to starting my podcast more than most people. Maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like I do. So you mentioned earlier, I'm a breathwork detox facilitator. No, I went to Utah. I got certified in breathwork detox, and I had a lot to say. I always had something to say. I was very much a talker. Even if I didn't have a question, I was always raising my hand. I had something to say. This is why his example is correct. Like it was to the point where, and this is how I realized I really didn't shut up because then I was like, oh, okay. His back was turned at one point, and then he goes, now before I answer whatever Amanda has to say, does anybody have any questions? And I was like, oh, okay,
That's
got it.
funny. Yeah.
Then towards the end of it, he said to me, Manders, you should start a podcast. And I was like, okay, but you got to be a guest. And now
Huh.
nobody had ever said to me before, you should start a podcast. And I had never even thought of it, honestly. It's not
Yeah.
some I meet a lot of other podcast hosts, and they're like, "Oh, I always thought no, I never once even considered it." But he said that,
Mm.
and I was like, "Okay." And now I was staying in a wagon in Utah, and I literally spent 3 hours that night in the wagon researching how do you start a podcast. And
Whoa.
and I had a little notebook with me, and I wrote down a list of 18 people that I knew in my life currently that I was like, I want to interview these people.
Whoa, that's
Yep.
so practical. That's crazy. What was the common theme amongst those 18 people that caused you to choose them over, obviously hundreds of other options and choices you had?
So I was only thinking of people that I knew in my personal life already, because one, at the time, I didn't even know like where you could get guests. Like where do I find people? Like, oh, there's groups. There's even places you can sign up to meet guests. Like, I didn't know any of this. So I was
Yeah.
thinking, one, people I know in my personal life. Two, I didn't know exactly what I wanted the name to be, but I knew I wanted it to be something in terms of your mind, your thoughts, your brain, because I had transformed a lot of my own mindset. I didn't have the mindset word right at the time, but I knew
Mm.
I wanted it to be something like that. So I was thinking, okay, people that I genuinely respect and would genuinely be okay sharing their story and what they've been through with like the general public. Like, who do I respect enough to have, because like podcasts are public. It's even more public than social media. So like I was
Yeah.
thinking I was thinking deep on this. Like, who am I okay with like airing to the world that they're on Amanda's podcast. So yeah.
Were you able to interview all 18 of those, or it was just a
I
prelim?
haven't done all 18 yet. I'm in the process. I've done most of them though.
Okay.
I think
And
it's
then,
I think it's like 15 of them. And you know
oh,
what's really interesting? And I found the list the other day, so I just realized this. One woman's name I wrote down. I've spoken to her about it. We just haven't had the time to coordinate it yet. I haven't interviewed her yet, but I interviewed a different woman with the same exact name.
what?
Yeah. And it's
That's
it's
wild.
it's not that popular of a name. Gabriella
What?
is the first name. Like
That's
it's
so
not something
crazy.
like, you
Huh.
know? Yeah.
Oh, they just had the same first name.
No, last name too. Gabriella Morales. Yeah, same first
What?
and last. And I'm
Wow.
like,
Huh.
okay. Yep.
Yeah. I feel like you have all these fortuitous moments that yeah, the universe is
I'm
definitely
I'm just
conspired.
manifesting like everything. I don't know.
Well, to be fair, I mean that's a lesson in itself, right? Because the average human being doesn't always put in writing, like even the act of
That's
writing
true.
those names is further than, I'll be real, like majority of folks who are over analyzing, overthinkers. And I mean, it's clear that you do your research. And I also want to apologize because I said I would send questions and I didn't. I should
No
have been
worries.
a little bit more direct and I should have said, hey, I prefer to do like organic, like let's go with the flow so that I could be present in the moment. And but instead I was like, oh, like most people, it's podcasting is weird, right? Because like everyone has their own process. But I do notice after interviewing maybe, I mean, at this point, I think I've interviewed over 1,000 people in my life.
Wow.
Yeah, about 300 of those are Uber rides, and then 300 are just random folks I go up in the streets, or London, New York, like Canada, etc. Just random people, and then about 400 are folks that I know or have met or a friend of a friend, so more through the networking.
Mm.
And I think most people prefer to have questions because I think we all get nervous, right? So people are just like the certainty of like, oh, I get to prepare. But I don't know. When I
There's
listen
pros and
to,
cons of both.
yeah, I think it depends. Like I think the structured is like a little bit more targeted, a little bit more focused. But I think for at least for me, and everyone operates differently, I find if I'm too focused on all these different things, like I'm like looking at my notes too much and like overthinking it. So that's what I have found to be the most like genuine, just to like, all right, like let me just like see where the conversation goes.
Yeah. No, I don't do scripted questions either. I started with having them like go down their background of like childhood to now a little bit just to get a foundation and go from there. But like that's pretty much the only thing I do the same guest to guest. And I recently started that so that I hadn't even been the whole time. So
Hmm. It, and are you seeing an evolution in terms of like your podcast downloads? Like, is it like every week you get a little bit more, or like how's your relationship to looking at the metrics?
it's interesting because I don't think I noticed a difference necessarily week to week. I think it's more so either based on the topic, or maybe not topic, but even title or
Mhm.
the guest, the individual guest as well.
Mhm.
Um, Even as well as, like, for example, I've had guests that have never been on a podcast ever. Those have high downloads because even people within their life, they want to hear them on a podcast
Oh,
if you
huh,
think about it like that. Like
huh,
one in my eyes, it's kind of how I see that. One of my really high downloads is from a woman who actually her father went through physician assisted suicide. She's never been on a podcast and she wanted to discuss that specifically. So like it got a lot of downloads. It also got a lot of downloads from a different country because she
huh.
has family in this other country, you know?
Oh,
Yeah.
it, I do think there's something. I mean, that's a pretty interesting topic. So half of it
Yeah.
could be like that's like a fascinating topic.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think obviously the clout of the person and then also the copywriting of how we introduce that person and then also like how interesting is like the first 5 minutes, right? I think also all those
Yeah.
three factors. Um, are there certain topics that you're noticing will get like a lot more views, listens on downloads versus like topics that are average or below average?
I don't know about below average, but one thing that I've noticed that is pretty popular is intuition. And a lot, maybe it's because of just me and things I somehow tie back in, but
Hmm.
a lot of my guests have tied that back into manifestation, intuition, things like that, and
Huh.
the guests seem to like them.
Do you, this is might be a weird question, but do you think women are inherently more intuitive than men?
I think so. I do
Okay,
think
that
so.
was a
I
leading
might
question.
I don't know if I do think so because
Yeah.
I also even think I can't speak for all women, but like I'm very observant. And I can't speak for men either, but like I pay attention to even little subtle things. Like
Yeah.
even for example, this is super random, but I was at a breathwork session and my mentor was facilitating, and I could tell he was looking for something. It was so subtle, but and he didn't say anything, but and I was just like, "What are you looking for? What do you need?" And he was like, "How do you know I'm looking for something?" And I was like, "I just do. Just answer the question. What do you need?" And he told me, but I was like, he's like, "How could?" And I'm like, "Dude, I don't know. Just like, don't worry about it. It's fine. We're good." So like even little things,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. I would agree. I would say, and I mean, I would say I'm definitely more intuitive than like most guys, but then I also have what Tony Robbins calls like a good mix of feminine energy as well. So I do think I'm just probably a little bit more in between.
Hmm.
Um, but I was like and I minimized because I was like at the live stream thingy. I was like I keep looking at the numbers like fluctuate. So I was like, all right, let me just like minimize it so I don't like get distracted. So I was like, okay, this is will help me be a little bit more focused and more present. But I do think guys, because our society almost teaches like, oh, your value as a dude is like use your brain and thinking. So like guys always have to like think their way out of things because it's like we're getting paid to problem solve and like, like lawyer stuff, right? Um, so I do think like women are naturally more intuitive because like I think in some ways you kind of have to be like yeah. It's
Even it makes me even think of like mothers, which like I'm not a mom, but like you
hmm,
you got that mom's like intuition or mother's knowing. I don't know,
mm,
like a
yeah.
lot of times mom just knows, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah. My mom does that. She's like, oh, it's like she'll call me sometimes. She's like, yeah, like I have a feeling you're not doing so hot. And I'm like, what? Like, how does she know? You know? But
Yeah.
yeah, it is interesting. Huh. That's cool. So you've had a lot of different guests. What is something that you didn't expect about being a podcaster?
Something I didn't expect. Um, how easy it is to find guests.
Mhm.
Because honestly, sitting in the wagon, I remember thinking, oh my gosh, I've only got 18 people. I want to have more than 18 episodes. I remember sitting there thinking that. And it's like, Amanda, you didn't even sit down to record yet. Like, we'll get there. But I didn't expect it to be as easy. But it makes sense. Like, people want to talk about their story themselves, you know?
Yeah. Eh, Are there any guests that you've rejected or that weren't a good fit for your podcast?
I have rejected guests.
Oh, really? Why is that?
um, so there was one gentleman, and now he was a nice guy, but now, and I don't mean this in a bad way, but I had a difficult time understanding his accent, and we
Oh,
spoke prior, and honestly, I just thought to myself, if I can't really understand you, and we're going back and forth, not in a rude way, but it's like it's not going to benefit really
yeah.
people, you know?
Yeah.
And yeah,
Oh, so he's been the only person that you said no to? Oh, that's
yeah.
not too bad. Yeah.
I just like I could we did like what I call a pre-interview, and there was a few things that like I said what like three times in 15 minutes, and I was like, oh boy, this is either
Yeah.
going to be a lot of editing or this is just not like I don't know, you know. And I didn't. That's also kind of insulting to him if me I'm saying, what did you say? Like maybe that's just me. I'm not understanding. You know, it's not
Yeah.
necessary. You know,
Yeah. And,
so
and what made you choose because it seems like hopefully I'm not getting this right. Is a lavender color? What made you choose like that color specifically?
purple's my favorite color. It just purple always has been my favorite color. Yeah,
And it's like is it like a branding thing as well? Like it's
it
like
now
also
is.
yeah. It's cool. I like it. It definitely stands out.
Thanks. I love it. It's just my vibe. I don't know, and it's just fit.
Hmm. So it sounds like you've quit your job. So how do you go about like operating outside of survival, right? Not in your kind of in that uncertainty period. Like how do you go about your relationship to risk and fear and uncertainty and all that stuff?
I mean, everything's uncertain. I mean, there's not really anything in life that we're certain that we're all gonna die. Nobody's gonna live forever. But like, I can't really be certain of anything.
Okay. Wow. That's acceptance at its core. So,
Yeah.
so monetary wise, like, do you have a game plan, or are you just like trusting the universe and like,
I mean, I'm facilitating breathwork. I've got clients I work with one on one. I do group classes. I'm working on doing more group classes. But I'm doing a lot of one on ones. I love them.
but but is at least initially, it's not as much as what you were making as a paralegal just yet, right?
Yeah, not as much.
But I'm sure it's way more rewarding.
No, it really is. It really is. Yeah, I love it.
So, like, how many more months do you think it'll take for you to make as much as the paralegal, or is that not even really like a focus? Like you're kind of just,
That's
you
not
know
a
that,
focus for me because I didn't get involved in breathwork for the money of it.
yeah.
So I love that I can make money doing it, but honestly, I even when I first tried it, and then even when the my friend who like introduced it to me and I loved it, I went back a second time. She was like, "You should get certified in this," and I was like, "What does that even mean? Get certified in what?" And she was like,
Mhm.
breathwork. And I didn't even know it was a thing. I was like, you can? Like, what does that
Mhm.
mean? She's like, dude, yes, like the certification, blah, blah, blah. I was like, ah. Like this is a
Hmm.
process. Like there's a way you make these playlists. There's a way you
Hmm.
hold space. There's a way you do all the things.
Hmm.
And yeah, like I love that I make money from it, but it wasn't ever something I was like, this is going to be my business, you know, like I didn't go into it for that,
Hmm.
but yeah.
Do you prefer the one-on-one or the group better?
I mean, I personally actually doing them like the one-on-ones, I get closer with my one-on-one clients because I have a pretty lengthy questionnaire that I send them and we go deep into it. So like
Hmm.
I even ask like time of birth, place of birth, and I'm reading their astrology, seeing anything I can see on that, and like I'm curating a playlist specific to them, what came up from them, and like there's different scalable questions, 1 to 10, how they're feeling on different things, asking them
Hmm.
about relationships within their lives. So like we go deep, and they always have like such transformations, and I love it. I love it.
Hmm.
And it's always mind-blowing to me. Like I think I've had my what like transformations, but what I see some of these people like go through, I'm like, okay, I thought breathwork changed my life. I guess maybe it didn't. Maybe it changed yours.
Oh,
Like it's
yeah.
just I had a client once, and this still like blows my mind, and I'm just like, I don't. It's just wild to me. But she and I didn't know this because so this was a group session, so she didn't tell me. Now, like they can, like I asked stuff, but they open up more to me in the one-on-ones I've noticed. But it was a group session did at a retreat, and this woman had recently had rotator cuff surgery. She was going through physical therapy. She had a lot of pain there, and now when I do sessions in person, I like go hands on. I touch those shoulders. I might touch this belly if I'm intuitively like guided to. I don't just do it, but like if I feel like inclined. And
Hmm.
I touched this woman's shoulder at one point, didn't know whatever. Then I touched her belly. Anyways, at the end, she was telling me, she was like, that was insane. And I was like, what came up for you? And she was like,
Hmm.
she told me about the surgery, and she's like, I had more pain than I've ever felt in my shoulder when I was doing this. And I was like, oh God. And in the moment, honestly, I was thinking, oh boy, is she going to tell me like this, like really fucked her up? I don't know. But then she's like, and then the pain was really bad and it went to my knee. And the pain was really, really bad. And then it went down and it was gone. And this was in February, and she doesn't have pain anymore. She stopped going to physical therapy. She does
Hmm.
breath work with me virtually and doesn't take medication and doesn't go to physical therapy anymore. And I'm like, oh,
Hmm.
okay, cool. Like, wow.
Huh.
So yeah, it blows me away.
That's all. I mean, that's clear that you certainly have found your calling. Um, so people that are like more like scientific or like need evidence, or people that are more I guess logical thinkers, like because I do think there's like half of the world are more like logical and less
Mhm.
like, oh, like this intuition bull crap, like, show me the proof, right?
Yeah.
Um, how would you, because like for instance, I think we had a conversation about this, I think on your podcast, but like some people say like chiropractors are quacks, some people say acupuncturists or acupuncturists are quacks, right? How does one kind of give up like the overthinking and then just able to just be open to different things?
Well, I mean, well, in terms of the scientific aspect, you're oxygenating the body, but in terms of
Hmm.
chiropractors and acupuncturists or even breath work, if you don't think something's going to work, I don't believe it will work. If you go into it with the mindset of it's not going to do whatever, it's not. I I even believe that even in terms of medications, if you are taking a prescription and your
Hmm.
mindset is this is not going to help me heal X, I don't I don't think it's going to help you as much as it could. I truly believe it. I truly believe that because and that also ties into the power of our words and thoughts. Like if you really believe something won't work, I don't think it's going to work for you. But if you
Hmm.
tell yourself it will, I think there's a better
Hmm.
chance it will.
maybe like a correlated point, but what's your vision for the podcast? Like, is the vision that you'll be like a have like millions of downloads one day? Like, I'm curious as to how you're thinking about that.
Um, it'd be cool to have millions of downloads, but like honestly, I just want to share right now. I don't know end long term goal. I don't plan on stopping it anytime soon. I love it. I'm learning a lot, and I know I'm sharing a lot with my listeners to be able to learn, whether that's my friends, whether that's people I don't even know, and I'm really enjoying it, and I love allowing people also the space to share their story. Like if you want to. If you don't want to share your story, cool, it's not for everybody. I get it. But we've all been through crap in life, and if I could allow somebody the space to share their story, I love
Mm,
that. Like even like my friend who her father went through the physician assisted suicide. uh, she still tells me about to this day, like different family members that are listening to it and how it helped her process just being able to get it out. So like I love that. I really love that. If I could
mm,
make money from this and have all the downloads and do all the yeah, I'd love it. It'd be great. But even if that doesn't happen, I'm okay with
mm,
it. So I wouldn't necessarily I have a specific goal for it, but I'm
mm.
seeing where it goes. I just hit the 1 year mark. So yeah.
That's a great mentality. It it's similar to you. Like, I love podcasts. Like, I love doing this. Like, it's so much fun. But I mean, clearly, we're both doing it without monetizing it, right? But it's interesting because I think when we're focused on, and I'm speaking for myself as well, but I'm sure many people who are listening can relate to this. If we're too focused on comparison or like too attached to like, oh, I need to get like 1,000 views on this, then it becomes are my intentions what it was when I first started, right? It's like when anyone first starts, it's kind of like, oh, I just like love sharing and providing. It sounds like in your case, providing an avenue for people to feel fully self-expressed and heard and cherished, and just as a way of people to heal, which is clear in all of your projects that there's a healing component to it. Um, were there maybe one or two moments that you'd be willing to share with us where maybe at the time it felt like a lot, but it feels like that's one of the catalyst or very a few catalysts that helps you want to be able to double down on this healing work.
In terms of it felt like a lot, do you mean in terms of the podcast or in my life?
No, no, life. Yeah.
Okay. Um, that felt like a lot where I had to double down. Um,
Like
what do
a
you mean by
pivotal
double down?
like a pivotal moment that felt like it was like very hurtful, or like like for instance, like divorce was like very, very like, like why did this happen to me? But then now I'm like, oh, a lot of my clients have also gone through not having a father and things like that. So, I guess troubling times that during it felt like very heavy, but it kind of led you down the path of being a healer now.
Um, yeah, there's been a few. One of them was even that toxic relationship that I mentioned. Like that, it was my first long-term relationship. I met him in college. We started off pretty early on together. And again, like I believe you see the signs early on. What I should have known, like within like it was like a month into our relationship, he accidentally kissed another girl. How do you accidentally kiss somebody? We're 20 years
Mm.
old. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I went through a lot with that. Like he cheated on me multiple times throughout it, and it wasn't even just, not to compare levels of cheating, but it was to the point where he almost had a full-on other girlfriend. He told her he loved her. She met his friends, like she met his dog. almost living a double life. So it
Mm,
it was really intense, and it was really hard for me. And I had a lot of lack of self love, honestly, while dealing with that, putting up with that. Um, but it was shortly after that that we broke up. We ended up getting back together. Um, I had it in my head that because like I lived in a different state than where I grew up because we were going to college. We
mm,
were going to be leaving college soon. We had like a year and a half left, and then I had it in my head, oh, if we're gonna fix things, I gotta fix things now. So
mm.
got back together. It still wasn't great. He just There was also a lot of controlling tendencies. Even besides the cheating, it was all. I don't even want to throw around the term narcissist because it's used so much. I think it's overused, but
Hmm.
he would always blame me for cheating. All the things he was doing, it would be tied back to me. I want to hang out with this friend because I'm secretly seeing my other boyfriend, when that's actually what he was doing. And it was all these little things just even making me think like I'm this awful person. And
Mm.
it it was it was honestly one of the hardest things I ever went through. Um
Wow.
yeah, and we got back together, then we were together for like about 2 years, and it was Thanksgiving Day. We broke up because I found out he was talking to that same woman again, and I was like, I'm done with this.
Mm.
We lived together at the time, and he was like, you can't break up with me. We live together, and it's Thanksgiving, and I was like, dude, we're coming up on 5 years in January, and we've been dealing with this for 5 years. I'm
Mm.
done. I'm done dealing with this.
Well, thank you
And
for sharing. Yeah.
yeah,
Oh,
then can I add
oh,
one more thing?
oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, there's more.
Yeah, one more. We broke up in November, Thanksgiving Day, but we lived together, and I am a very. I don't. You could say stubborn. You could say I'll stand my ground, but neither one of us were willing to leave, so we lived together, broken up for 10 months. Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
So much to unpack there, but I am curious. Um, how are you able to move on, right, despite being having so much things happen? Like how does one still open up their heart and still have trust and faith in society or the world, right, despite of all these challenges?
Um, that's a great question. I just I guess they've just made me stronger, as cliche as I may sound, like, you just keep going, and you shift the way you look at it, shift your mindset, and keep
Mm.
keep pushing forward.
So do you like not trust guys, or do you still like know that some guys are inherently still good, or like
No, I would
I'm
say
always
I would say I trust guys. I wouldn't
oh,
say that
okay.
I like don't trust guys.
Yeah, I'm always curious, right? Because it's like you hear about all these stories, and then I'm like, wow, that.
Honestly, I don't have regrets with that relationship. I think it taught me a lot. It showed me what I don't want, what I do want, how I want to be treated, even small things like little comments that I don't want to be said to me, things that I do want, it's just different
Mm,
things. And it also tied back to myself. Like, somebody can't put you through something that you don't allow.
mm,
To an extent,
yeah,
you allow it.
hmm, that's deep.
So I can point the fingers at him. I can say whatever, which did he do some of what he did? Absolutely. Yeah. Did he cheat on me? Yeah. But 5 years, I didn't leave. Okay. I left for 3 months of it, but I went back.
Mm,
I wasn't forced to go back. I wasn't forced to move in with him.
hmm,
Okay. Maybe I was forced to deal with 10 months, but I chose, knowing he had cheated before, to still get the apartment.
hmm. Do you feel like it's because it was like comfortable, or it's kind of like the devil you know versus the devil you don't know type of thing?
Honestly, part of me was thinking I was gonna help. I was helping him, and he blamed me
Oh.
for a lot of it, and I just really thought I was. He had a lot of childhood issue trauma and different things he went through, and I really, I'm a natural healer to sometimes to a fault, and I really thought I was gonna help and heal this man. Yeah,
Hmm.
it was actually one of his good friends even said to me, "You can't change somebody who doesn't want to change themselves, Amanda." And I was like, well, "Why are you saying this to me?" And he was like, "Because I don't think anybody else is gonna." And I was like,
Hmm.
"Okay," which, yeah,
Hmm. Yeah. It, it's interesting what you're saying. Well, there's two things. Uh, I mean, good that your friend, because I do think that a lot of us do see things with our friends, and we're just like, oh, we'll just let it slide, or it's kind of like, oh, I don't want to be the person that brings the bearer of bad news, right? So that's great that your friend was actually the one that was like, yo, like, yeah, I think sometimes I'm that person and they don't like me initially, but then like a few years later, they'll be like, yeah, thank you, you know?
yep,
Um, and then the point that you said around like we allow ourselves like I mean I'm guilty, for instance, like of people allowing people to treat me a certain way, right? But that's because I'm not speaking up for myself, or I'm like afraid or whatever, right? There's so many different reasons. But that is, there's some truth to that, right? It like we are essentially training others how we want to be treated, unconsciously or not, right? So yeah, as a recovering people pleaser, the title of my fifth book is called, that's coming out this year, is called Adventures of a Recovering People Pleaser, People Pleasing Contrarian. So I can
love it.
relate to what you're saying.
Yeah, I used to be the same way in so many areas of my life, and it's like if we don't tell people, for example, like we don't like something, we're not okay with something, like okay, maybe cheating's not an example, but certain things like people don't know. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
we don't. I actually heard on a podcast recently, and I can't remember for the life of me what it was, and I really wish I could. But and you hear so many people talking about healing your inner child and the inner child work, and this woman was saying, even our parents don't know how to treat us. We need to
Hmm.
teach them or tell them. And it might sound crazy, but like they're still humans just because they're our parents.
Hmm.
And it was something that really resonated with me because like I have the backstory of not knowing my father for a long time in my life, So it's like I could point the finger at him too, but at the same time, it takes two to tango, you know? I didn't meet him till I was 26, but why didn't I reach out earlier? He could have reached out, but so could have I.
What was the catalyst that caused you to make that first effort?
Two different things. I did life coaching and I did one-on-one life coaching with this woman, and she actually used the word hearsay and how like I was saying something about my father, and she was like, Amanda, that's actually hearsay, and that's like a legal term. Like you're basing that off of something that somebody else said. So like you can't
Hmm.
hold that against somebody in court. Like it's technically illegal.
Hmm.
And I was just like, oh, paralegal in me was literally like, this is hearsay. I can't even.
Huh.
And I was really taken aback. Then
Wow.
it was, yeah. Then it was 3 months later, I did ayahuasca. And then I was like, okay, who am I to be judging this man and looking at this man when I've never spoken to him? I'm going based on what other people say about him. Then, as ayahuasca really makes you think. And then I'm like, Amanda, all these people's opinions of him, haven't spoken to him in over 20 years. So,
Huh.
okay, maybe people don't change, but if they do, they might change in 20 years. That's a long time. And in
Huh.
my mind just kept thinking all these thoughts. And then it was like, okay, I'm young, and but the only thing I know in life that is certain is death. I'm gonna die one day, and so is he. And
Hmm.
I don't want to look back on life knowing that like he passed away and I didn't even meet him. I didn't even say
Hmm.
anything. If he doesn't want to meet me, okay. I can't say that at the end of the day I didn't try.
Wow. Man, oh, so much gold. Oh my God. This is so good. Eh, I wish, like, if anyone could take anything from this episode, what you just said there can literally change your life, right? Like, how many of us have listened to whether it's our parents or our relatives about someone else that and just make all these assumptions and form a whole story and like that make a character build based on someone else's opinions, right? I mean, I'm not gonna lie, like I would say there's probably a lot of, and I'm sure moms are justified in saying like, "Oh, your dad's a worthless piece of shit," right? But it's like let your child formulate that on their own. Like, don't tell them before they have even met. It's like obviously, it's like with anything, right? Like if I'm introducing you to like my friend Gina, for instance, or just anyone, right? And I'm like, oh my God, Amanda's amazing. We had like the most like deep conversation and like you guys would totally get along. Like you're both into healing work. Like you could totally meet. Like obviously that's like a much better frame than like, like maybe my mom talking to her coworkers maybe at the nail salon. It's like, yeah, my husband's like a piece of shit. Like he's so lazy, like blah blah blah. And it's like, well, yeah. And then when they meet him, they're like, oh, like he wasn't as bad as I thought he would be. And it's like, well, yeah, because you put him, the way you framed it was like this guy is a loser. So it's like, of course they're gonna come with a preconceived, like with a lot of assumptions, right? So just implementing what you just said and actually like formulating those on your own. So of course, my next question is, when you did meet him, was it accurate? Like, was kind of what your mom said accurate?
So I mean, I'm still glad I met him, but I will say we don't really have a relationship now. I
Yeah.
I don't really know why. He just seemed kind of like a flaky type of person.
Yeah.
Um, I don't have regrets though. I really don't, because again, like I think about a lot of decisions about how I'm going to feel towards the end of my life, which some people can say that's morbid, but I don't want to look at life with regrets. You
Mhm.
know, and even now, even though we don't have a relationship, even though things were a little weird, we had some
Hmm.
good times. We went to a
Hmm.
fair. That was fun. That was nice. I
Yeah.
got to hear stories about his parents, his family, and that's something I'm
Oh.
still grateful for, because these stories my mom and her side of the family don't necessarily know. And it's
Yeah.
still about me. It's still my family. Whether I ever
Yeah.
meet them, like a lot of them have passed and some of them I won't ever meet, which is fine. But
Hmm.
it's still nice to know. It's kind of like I kind of compare myself to kids who were adopted, which I know it's different, but like you just want to know yourself more. And like so
Hmm.
many people have like go through this like a who am I, type of thing. But
Hmm.
I felt like I had that even more so because I didn't know half the side. Like I'm more Polish than I realized. A
Hmm.
random fact, like
Huh. Wow, that's so cool. So like when you first met him, what was that? What was like the first question? What was the first question you asked him? And how many times like have you hung out with him like in total? Is it and like can you count it in like two hands or
I can't. That's it. Honestly, a good question. What my first question was, but I don't remember what my first question was. Um, but it was cool. It wasn't awkward. It wasn't really awkward, which I kind of thought it would have been more awkward than it was. It wasn't. I went there. I showed up. And it was nice. I've probably seen him 5 times total, so not like a crazy amount.
yeah.
But yeah, it hasn't been bad. I've enjoyed getting to learn about my family. I have a half brother. I haven't met him in person yet, but he's great. I really like him. Um, yeah.
Oh, so you met
It's
him
been cool.
virtually, like
Yeah,
online?
we met him. I met him virtually. He's so cool. He's so cool.
Oh,
He's very adventurous. He's always sending me different pictures of things he's up to in the mountains.
oh.
Yeah, one day I'm gonna meet him one day. So, but yeah,
I'm curious, why you haven't met each other is it just because you're both, it's just been busy or?
and he's far. He like I live in Massachusetts, and he lives in Arizona. So
Oh, okay.
I'd have to
Yeah.
take a flight, and just between work, it just hasn't happened yet.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
and I haven't my father hasn't been in my life for that long, so like even my
Yeah.
brother hasn't either, so it's only been a year and a half now, so it hasn't it's
Huh.
not this
Oh,
is still
wow.
new-ish, it's not like it's even like it we haven't even hit 2 years yet,
Oh.
so yeah.
Was he really happy to meet you?
Yeah, yeah, he always wanted a sibling, and so did I, ironically enough, which is funny.
Did
But
he
yeah,
know
we
about you?
no, he didn't. We look a little similar, which is kind of
What?
interesting. And
Uh,
you know what's even more interesting, and I don't say this to a lot of people, but I'll share it. I said it, and even I said it to my best friend, and she was like, Amanda, I thought the same fucking thing, but I didn't want to say that because he's your brother. And I was like, if I would have met this man on like the street or on like whatever, I would have been so attracted to this man. I would have flirted with him. I would have, yes, he is 110% my type. And I was like, okay,
Oh,
that's
really?
interesting. Oh yeah,
Huh.
100%. And even my best friend, she was like, if you would have just sent me these pictures and not said this is bro, I would have thought you were showing me somebody you're interested in. And I said, okay,
That's
yep,
funny. Huh.
yeah, yeah.
The, so, oh man, that's so cool that, I mean, I love how you like legacy in mind and just who like the intentionality across the board with like the healing work, the breath work, like everything you do, it's so intentional and you're doing it with like ease and freedom, which I I love because yeah, I would say like a good chunk of my community, I'm not sure if it's just like the Asian American community, it's always like let me just like outwork everyone, right? So it's just interesting to be, and that's another cool thing about podcasting, like I'm being exposed to like people outside of my bubble. So I'm like, whoa, there's like a whole world out here where like people aren't trying to like over like work and that's how they prove their worth to society, you know? So it's just cool to meet people that clearly think differently than I guess I would say the people that I surround myself with.
It's interesting you say that because I really used to embody that like overworker mentality, honestly, up until
Hmm.
ayahuasca. It
Ah,
was I was like I was the
mm,
paralegal that my boss would have to tell me, Amanda, it's time to go. And I'm like, I'm still working on whatever. And he's like, I'm shutting the lights off. Let's go. And
mm.
yeah, it was ayahuasca
Wow.
that like I was like, I don't want to live like this. Like, yeah, you gotta work. Yeah, we all need money based on the society we live in.
Mm.
That's what America is. Like, that's just what life is. We all need money, whether you want to admit it or not, we do to survive. But it's
Yeah.
like I don't want to live to work, I want to
Yeah.
live to live my life. And for the longest time, I was like trying to climb this corporate ladder. I wanted to be this like successful lawyer and all these, and it's just like, I don't want
Mm.
that lifestyle. I sat back and I was like, I don't want that lifestyle. I saw so many attorneys close hand and like, yeah, they enjoy their job at times, but there's so much of family and so much of their personal life that I witnessed that they're missing out on. And
Mm.
I don't want that. Granted, I don't have kids yet. I'm not married yet, but it's like I know still at 27, I don't want to miss out on that. Like I
Mhm.
remember saying to my boss, your son's got a baseball game. You need to leave. Like go home. Like yes, I am that paralegal that is not afraid to crack the whip either. And like I'll say shit to anybody. But it's like I don't want to have to I don't want that to be my life. And yeah, I'm
Yeah.
sure there's attorneys out there that have a better balance. I'm sure. I'm not denying that.
Yeah.
But the vast majority, you know,
Mm. Oh my God. And now I'm super curious. Anytime anyone mentions ayahuasca, like Oh, I love it. Wait, could
You
you
have
share?
you done ayahuasca?
No, I haven't. I'm a little bit scared, I'm not gonna lie. But I just love hearing. I listen to a lot of podcasters like Tim Ferriss and like, I mean, basically like Noah Kagan. Like all of my friends have, not all, but like my friends that I'm really, really close to, they all have done it. And it's always super fascinating to me. Would you be willing to share about your experience?
Yeah. Do you have specific questions or do you want me to just share generally?
Yeah, okay, so the three things that I'm most curious about was like, what, how did you choose the location that you did choose? What were the insights? And then what was like what compelled you to want to do it like then as opposed to like years later? Because I know I'll do it eventually, right? But it's just for me, it's I think the perfect time is when I'm about to have a kid because I just want to, I think that would be like a landmark of where like, okay, this is like, and then this is the next chapter. So that's my intention going into it. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So I did mine at a place that my ex-boyfriend had actually done it at. And I found out about the place through him because he wanted me to do it with him when we were together. And I was like, I'm not doing ayahuasca. And I believe that like you'll know if or when you're meant to do it. Like if you're meant to do it before you have a kid, or maybe it'll be sooner, maybe it'll be after. I believe you'll know because like
Mm.
I was adamant when this man was like, he was like, I'll pay for you to do it. I'm like, I'm not doing ayahuasca. Like I was,
Huh.
no, there was, and we had a good relationship. Like I was close to this man. Like
Huh.
we didn't have issues like I had with like the guy before. Like, no, it was good. Like there was
Uh,
nothing like loved him. Like we broke up and it wasn't even anything bad. But like I
hmm.
was so against it. And he was like, I'll drive. No, I was not,
Hmm.
no. And I just had it in my head. I was like, I'm not doing drugs like that. Like what? That's like drugs. Like occasionally I
Huh.
smoke weed, but like I'm not doing ayahuasca. That's like what? And I like I was even like, you think I'm gonna do drugs in the woods? And I even said that, like, what does that even mean? I don't know. But I was like, I'm not doing drugs in the woods. Okay, Amanda. And it's ironic because we broke up and then it was literally 6, 7 months later, I did ayahuasca at the same exact place. And yep. And so like I did feel more comfortable because like I knew somebody had who had gone there. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Because like when you say ayahuasca, you still have there's nerves around it. Like you're gonna have nerves no matter what. But
Yeah.
I felt more safety knowing like, okay, even though he's not in my life right now, I knew someone in my personal life for a long time that I
Hmm.
trust, and I can still say I would trust like if he went here, you know what I'm saying? So like,
Hmm.
okay. Um, so that was that. And insight, I thought about everything. Any experience I had in my life, whether it was a small thing, a big thing, a random thing, it all came back to my mind. Everything that ever happened came back to my mind. And I just thought about it all. I journaled so much. And even people were like, how are you able to write? Like, how can you
Yeah.
even like, I wrote 70 pages of a notebook and I just filled, yes.
Whoa.
I wrote letters to people. Some of them got them, some of them didn't. Um,
Huh.
but yeah, I thought about everything, even experiences like that I didn't previously remember that had happened, like minuscule
Huh.
ones. It was like I would see it. I'd see it in my mind, and I'm like, oh,
Huh.
okay, yep.
Wow. So was this a lot different than the other psychedelics that you've done?
So the oh, I've done mushrooms as well, but that wasn't as intense or insightful per se.
Hmm.
Whereas like even everybody gets a different experience with all of them, but
Hmm.
for me, I didn't have a lot of visuals. Like I wasn't seeing these
Oh.
things. Like people think, oh, it's gonna be it's not necessarily as fun, pretty. Like I
Huh.
saw even like the memories I hated. It was like watching my life
Hmm.
on a movie. And at
Yeah.
times I was like, I wanna shut it off. But
Yeah.
you can't. Like
Yeah.
you can't leave the theater. It doesn't the movie doesn't shut off, it just keeps playing.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I thought about things from different perspectives, and I really think a movie's a good way to say it because like I was seeing like, oh, this is what Amanda did here. this is what so and so did here. Here's why, maybe why they did that, or maybe here's why they did that. And like
Hmm,
thinking of all the angles of everybody's, maybe their perspective. It
hmm.
was insane.
It- yeah, the movie part is always scary, and that's why partially why I don't do it, because every time I've done like any psychedelics, I would have like crazy vivid like memories and like to your point, like if sometimes the time, because I would lose track of time and it would feel like 30 hours or like sometimes it feels like 10 hours or I don't know. I mean, I just I don't know. So that part is scary. And then to your point, like the negative memories always I'm always like, oof, like that was heavy, but long term, I mean, I do think it's completely changed a lot about yeah. So I think you're right. I think intuitively I'll know when I'll be compelled to, because that's what happened with a lot of my friends that have also tried it. Um, wow. So yeah, this has been an amazing episode. I feel like we talked about ayahuasca, we talked about like, we both share the daddy stuff. So um, and a lot of people in my community have also haven't met their parents, or don't have a relationship necessarily still with their father. So that's something that a lot of people will find to be able to relate to.
Yeah.
And the healing work, we also have a lot of healers in this community as I go to all these conferences, and a lot of my friends are also like Reiki healers. So it's cool that it's interesting because when we first connected, I'm like, oh, I'm not really sure like how much we're gonna have in common, right? Because you don't know, right? It's like just based on without even doing like any research. I'm like, oh, like we'll see. But it's like
You
it's great.
invited me to New Jersey. You said if you're ever in New Jersey, we could hang out. You didn't know if we were gonna have stuff in common. Do you just say that to everybody then?
No, I meant like before we even had our call, like when we just did
Oh,
before we had the
oh,
pre-call. Yeah,
okay.
yeah. Like yeah, I was just like, oh, cool, breathing goddess. All right, like she sounds interesting.
It's funny you say interesting because that is like a word that so many people use to describe me on podcasts. So many hosts. Like that's their thing. Gotta say you're interesting. I know. I
Well,
know.
it's not a
That's a great
bad
word.
thing, right?
No, it's not. It's just a
Oh,
word.
okay.
No, I don't
Yeah.
mean it badly.
What
It
what
was
what
just
word
funny
what word would you use to describe yourself if you could choose one word?
to describe myself. One word. Hmm. I would say resilient.
Ooh, that's a good one. I like that. That's awesome.
No, I
Uh,
just thought it was funny because you're the third podcast host that I've been on that's called me interesting. It's not bad or good. I thought it was funny because I've never been called interesting so much prior to guesting on podcasts. Because I just say things and they're like, you're interesting. And I'm like, I know. Now you know how my friends feel. My close friends are like, God, Amanda.
Oh, so I liked how there was a lady named that has a podcast. She's like a Christian, Alna Fulmer, I believe is like her name. We met through Rory Vaden's like brand builders group, and I like how she did this, so I'm gonna like steal some of it. But she did a portion that was like fast, rapid fire, like stories, but it was like more fun and like more entertainment, right? So I was like, ooh, I like that. Like, let's switch it up. So, well, the first without overthinking, like the first word that comes to mind when I say that word, just think of a word, whatever the first word that comes to mind.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Babies.
Dogs,
Uh, marriage.
kids,
Bali.
me,
Aw. Paralegal.
law,
Uh, detox.
breathwork,
Reiki.
Amanda,
Dolphins.
tattoos. I have two dolphin tattoos, fun fact.
Oh, cool. Okay. Okay. All right. And so, and maybe we'll end it with a couple fun questions. Um, where's the next travel destination, overseas? We'll do one overseas and one domestic that you would like to travel to next.
So let me ask, that I'd like to or that I'm actually traveling to?
We could do both. That'll be cool. Yeah.
So I'd like to I'd like to go back to Bali. I want to go back to Bali. That's on the
Oh,
list. That's on the list.
yeah.
Domestically, I want to go out west. I don't know where, but I want to go out west. I haven't done a lot of out west traveling, so I want to do more out west traveling.
Oh, maybe we could visit someone in Arizona. That would be cool. Arizona's cool. Have you been there? I
I
think
have
it would.
not.
I want to go because of the hiking. The hiking looks really good over there.
Yeah.
Sedona, more specifically Sedona, looks like a
Mm.
blast. Have you heard of Sedona?
I have. I haven't been there though.
It's everyone says it's like healing, like very spiritual
Yes.
people like love it
Yes.
there.
I've heard that.
Yeah.
I've heard
So
that.
that's like on my bucket list. One of my friends
Mm.
moved over there and he loves it. Like it seems like a more laid back lifestyle in Arizona compared to
Mm.
over here where he's originally from Jersey. So
Mm.
cool. Well,
Okay.
thank you so much, Amanda. Oh, what's the best way people could get in touch with you? I've included your link tree, your Instagram, and oh, I should include your detox re- meditation. And yeah, I'll include the stuff that is on your link tree as well, just so people can easily access it. Yeah.
Instagram is the best place. I'm most active on there, but like through the link tree, you can email me if you don't have Instagram. But yeah,
Oh, and what type of guests are you looking for your podcast in case people are interested? Perhaps they can reach out to you.
I'm pretty open to any types of guests, but anybody who's gone through some type of transformation, because Manda's mindset, and I always say, shift your mindset, shift your life, because we've shifted something internally to change external shifts, whether that's the way you talk to yourself, whether that's fitness, whether that's you shifted careers, maybe you left a toxic relationship, but you changed and shifted something and became a new person, which is pretty broad, but I like it like that.
Amazing. Well, do you prefer Manders or Amanda or Mandy?
Mandos.
Oh, Manders. Okay. Manders, I want to thank you and acknowledge you for your resilience, your just the ability to just be so authentic and real and just talk about. And it's funny because this is a LinkedIn audience, so the fact that like check off a bucket
Talking
list
about
item.
ayahuasca
It's
on
go
LinkedIn.
Yeah, I never thought I would do that, so yes.
Gotta
Thank
say,
you.
I forgot we were live on LinkedIn, but okay.
It's okay. It's only a few hundred people. No worries. Should I tag you on LinkedIn? Do you have a
Go for it.
LinkedIn,
I
first of
do.
all?
I do.
Okay, all right. I wasn't sure because like some of the topics I'm like, and then
I
you
don't
did talk.
mind.
Okay, cool. Just making sure. But
Thank you
uh
so much for having me. I loved this. I loved this. I really did. One of my favorite
aw,
podcasts.
aw, thank you so much.
For real. I do. And I